Chris Maragakis of Simply Be Retreats and Therapies, and you're listening to Mindful Mutterings, the podcast for people who want to live easier, better and calmer lives. Please subscribe, like and share these podcasts, and thank you so much for listening. Hi, welcome to episode 5, and in this week's episode we're going to be looking at how our thoughts make us suffer and what we can actually do about that. And let me start off by pointing out that obviously not all of our thoughts make us suffer, but we're not worried about the ones that are adding to our life. We're looking at the ones that cause us pain or cause us to be unhappy and what we can actually do about them. So what do I actually mean when I say that our thoughts are causing us to suffer? Most of us, if we're honest, will always blame an external force for our happiness or our unhappiness. And it'll be, you know, if I'm with this person, they make me happy. If I have this big house, it'll make me happy. If this person talks to me in that way, that makes me unhappy. Or if this person does this, it makes me jealous. But the truth of the matter is, it's not what those people do that affect our happiness and our well-being. It's how we respond to those, how we are triggered from our past beliefs. And that comes down to our thoughts. So the first reason that our thoughts can cause us suffering is because we believe them. So our brains are supercomputers. They analyse all the input they receive and then put them against past actions, memories, beliefs, habits, and then produce a thought. We then, most of the time, just carry on through our day, take this thought as the absolute truth and run with whatever it's told us and then deal with whichever emotions it triggers. And it's these emotions and these thoughts that then cause us to react in a certain way. We rarely question them, but then we often wonder why we're making the same mistakes or why we're unhappy or unfulfilled or why things keep happening to us. And the reason they keep happening to us is because we're just doing the same thing over and over and over again. And I think it was Einstein who said that the definition of madness was to do the same thing over and over again and expect a different outcome. So the reason that this happens in our life, the reason that we keep doing the same things over again and going through the same patterns of behaviour is because we've learnt them through growing up. You know, we've been conditioned to believe this way and we don't give it any thought. We are just triggered every time something happens. So that's the first reason. The second reason that our thoughts can cause us pain is because we're attached to them. So we have an ego, and that is the part of us that thinks that we are all important, that we should come first. And we often put ourselves in the centre of a problem. You know, if someone ignores us in the street, we assume it's because it's something that we've done. You know, if something doesn't go the way that we should think it should go, then we get upset. And that's the attachment that we have, that we should be getting what we want all of the time. And when we don't get what we want all of the time, the ego doesn't like it, and it makes us angry, or it makes us frustrated or jealous or whatever we think it is. But the point is, that's not real. That's just the brain doing what it was doing in point 1. It's putting what we can see against all our beliefs, past experiences and everything else, and giving us the thought that it gives us all the time. And we just blindly go on through life believing these thoughts and responding to them. Or actually we react to them. We don't respond, because respond would say that we were choosing. So an example for that is that one of our thoughts is that so-and-so should speak to us nicely, and so-and-so doesn't speak to us nicely. So-and-so is often quite rude. And we don't like that. We don't like that because that's not how it should be. It's not fair. And these are the thought processes that are not helpful to us, because that leads us to believe that we can make things change. Well, the reality of the moment is that that person is being rude. And if we're trying to fight reality, we're never going to win, because the truth of the matter is that person is being rude. It doesn't matter whether we agree with it or whether we like it or whether we think it should change. The truth of the matter is the person's being rude. It's now going to be how we deal with it. And most of the time we don't choose to respond to it. It just creates this hamster wheel of responses and we just react. And then that causes us to go through the same cycle that we always go through when we're being triggered. And so then we come to the third reason that our thoughts can cause us pain. And that's because they're familiar. We know how we think. We know what we believe, or at least we think we know what we believe. We are used to living our life the way we do. We don't question them. It's nice and safe. We know we've built up these little brick walls of resistance to what we don't want to deal with, and it's all very comfortable and familiar. And this is what we often talk about, stepping outside of our comfort zone. It's about having the new experiences so that you can learn more, so that you can change your belief systems, or at least so you can question them. But when we're in a familiar routine, we don't like our beliefs to be challenged because we're in this little bubble. We know how to respond. The brain knows how to keep us safe, and we just tick along. Lovely, lovely, lovely. But the brain can't tell, firstly, whether the things that we're experiencing are true or imagined. And secondly, it keeps us in this familiar little bubble, and it likes its routines because it's worked out that's how it keeps us safe. But it cannot tell whether these routines are helpful to us or causing us pain. And so the only person that can do that is us, and only if we're aware enough to be challenging them. So then what can we do about these thoughts? Because obviously we can now see where they could possibly be impacting on our life and not giving us the best opportunities to be happy or to be fulfilled. And so the first thing to do is to question them. You know, where do these beliefs that we have come from? Are they our beliefs? Do they come from our parents? Do they come from our teachers? Did we pick them up at school from our peer group or from influential people in social media? Did we believe this because we've been told it over and over again by a partner or a family member? You know, once you start to question the beliefs that you have, you can then start to see whether you do believe them. And then you can go one step further and you can question whether they're helping your life or whether they're hindering your life. And once we become aware of our thought processes, and this is essentially mindfulness, becoming aware of our thoughts and deeds, then we can choose what to do about them. So if they're not our thoughts and we don't believe them, then we can start to think, what do we do? What do I believe? You know, which of this, in this scenario, what do I believe about it? What do I know in this moment to be true? And how then am I going to align that with what I can see in front of me? And then we can look at ways to alter the beliefs that we don't think are working for us, either through education and exploring new ideas, or through the experiences that we're living, or through coaching. And then that in turn helps us change how we interact with the external world. The next thing that we can do is not allow them to trigger us. And by that, I mean having our buttons pushed. You know, there is an automatic response that we have to most things that runs in our subconscious. And like I said right at the very beginning, because something happens, the brain knows what to do because it's seen this before in super lightning quick speed. It processes everything that every time it's seen this before and thinks, right, well, I did this last time. It worked. The person's still alive. Brilliant. Let's go with this. And a thought is processed. We believe that thought, an emotion goes with it, and all of a sudden we're acting out a scenario that we've acted out so many more times before. So that's triggering. And so it's an automatic response that we generally don't control. So once we have worked out what tends to trigger us, then we can start to change the way that we behave. So when we become into a situation that we are aware can be triggering for us, we can just become aware of how we're thinking during the situation, or maybe it's a person that constantly winds us up or irritates us. And we can start to just step back and we can start to see the dance that we're playing, because it's all a dance, our social interactions. You know, like they say one thing, we react to something else. And it's about changing the way that we dance so that the situation has to change. So then we can become aware of what they're saying, and we can actively listen rather than listening to reply. And we can see if there's truth in what they're saying, or if there's truth in the situation. And then we can process that information, and bearing in mind that the brain will do this so fast, but then we can choose how we respond. We can choose not to do what we normally do. We can choose to look at this person with compassion. We can choose to listen to what they're saying. We can still disagree with them, but we can do it with empathy, and we can do it calmly and reasonably. And that is how we start to change not only our mindset, but maybe we change the relationships with the people that we have around us. But what we are doing most importantly is that we are not repeating the mistakes that we make in the past. So then if we're getting back to the person that's speaking to us rudely, if we go back to the example that I had before, just to show how this works. So normally they would be rude to us. We would respond back. Either we'd be rude back to them, or we'd huff off, or we'd get upset, or whatever our normal reaction would be. But instead, if they're being rude to us and we just stop for a minute and we refuse to go through our automatic process and we just think, right, well, okay, why are they being rude? First reason, could it be that I was rude to them in the first place? Maybe I'm standing aggressively. Maybe my body language is giving off the wrong vibes. Maybe the language that I used was confrontational. So that's the first thing to think about. Second thing to think about would be, well, maybe this is how they talk to everybody. Maybe it's not actually got anything to do with me. They're just lacking in social skills. Maybe it could be that we have to consider the fact that they're under incredible pressure. That doesn't condone the reason that they're being rude, but it does help us to understand why there might be a reason behind it. And then we can start to change the way we respond to that. So instead of then doing what we would normally do, we can start to think, right, well, okay, me walking away or me getting rude back is not going to solve anything here. So maybe it's time for me to say, look, I'm really sorry, I'm keen to help you, or I'm keen to understand what you're saying. But I'm not very happy about the way that you're speaking to me. Is there something I've done that's causing you to speak this way? Or, whatever. It gives us options to start moving forward. And that's how we can then start to see how we change things. And we can apply that to every part of our life. And lastly, we can start to monitor our thoughts and see if that actually fit for purpose. And this is, again, mindfulness in action. So we're being aware of what we're thinking. We're being aware of how that impacts on our life, in the conversations that we're having, in the way that we're holding our bodies, in the way that we're choosing to live. Are we causing stress by continuing to act out behaviours and patterns that aren't working for us? Or are we looking at how we can let go of the stress and pain and suffering by becoming aware of the thoughts that we're having, questioning them, not being attached to them, and then looking at ways that we can move forward and change them? And we have this strange idea that our thoughts should stay the same, that everything should stay the same. The truth of it is, in every second of every day, everything is changing. While you're listening to this, people have died, people have been born, our cells are breaking down, new cells are being made. Amazing things are happening on the planet. There is all kinds of things that happen all the time because nothing stays the same. So why on earth would we imagine that our thoughts should stay the same? The beliefs and thoughts that we had when we were children might not serve us now as adults because we are different people. And so it's becoming aware of our thoughts and making sure that we are constantly updating them so that they are true to us and they are helping us move forward in our life. And we really don't like change. Lots of people find it very, very difficult to change. We like things to be familiar, and most of our stress and suffering actually comes from trying to control life, for trying to keep things the way they are, keep everything familiar, keep everything safe. And really, we're setting ourselves up to fail because that is impossible. And this is where a lot of stress comes from, because the pressure that we put ourselves under to try and hold everything together to keep things the same is unbearable. And it's also an impossible thing to do. So by being aware of our thoughts, by making sure that they're constantly questioning them and allowing ourselves to evolve and grow, and allowing the people around us to do the same, and recognizing that they might have different beliefs and different opinions, helps us to change the way that we respond. But not only that, if we acknowledge the fact that we're changing, then what we can do is, in our interactions with other people, we can acknowledge that they might have a different opinion to the one that they had a week before. And so we're not holding people in these rigid little boxes that we put them in. Very often when we meet people, or we get to know them well, we put this idea in our mind. We have a picture of who they are. We sum them up very quickly. We do love a label, and we have an idea of what this person thinks, what they feel, how they behave. And we never move on from that. We keep them in this little box and we expect them to behave that way all the time, which means that a lot of the time we're not actually listening to what they're saying. We're not fully mindful and present when we're with them and noticing the changes in their behaviour. And yet, if we're acknowledging the fact that we're changing every day, surely we have to acknowledge the fact that they're changing every day. And so by listening carefully to other people, by acknowledging the events as they happen around us, and by being honest and looking at what is happening in front of us, not what we would like to be happening, then we could choose to let go of a lot of the stress and anxiety and pain that our thoughts cause, because instead of trying to make it as we would want it to be, we can deal with it as it actually is. And when we reflect on our beliefs and behaviours regularly, we begin to see that life flows like a river. And if we go with this flow and we deal, like I said, with what is rather than what we would like it to be, the stress and the suffering flows away too. And that then impacts on everyone around us, because we're happier, we're more content, we're giving off a nicer vibration, we're staying healthier, and people can see that and people are attracted to that, and it makes their interactions with us more harmonious and healthy too. And I think when you think about how many thoughts we have a day and how many opportunities we have to suffer, which is what we do with our thoughts, and how many opportunities we have to change that, it's mind-blowing. In 2005, the National Science Foundation published an article, and it was all about human thoughts and how many thoughts we have a day. And they found that the average person, whoever that may be, had between 12,000 and 60,000 thoughts a day. And of those thoughts, 80% were negative. 80% negative thoughts. And of the huge amount of thoughts we have, 95% were exactly the same thoughts as the day before. So you can see then how we're perpetuating our own unhappiness and why we're repeating patterns that have gone on all through our life. And that actually, by just doing these 3 very simple things, questioning our thoughts, being aware of what we're thinking and not being attached to them, we can then start to change our life and the way that we interact with others, the way that we move through life, the situations we find ourselves in, and the way we handle ourselves. And by doing all of this, we then become responsible for our happiness, our security, our peace of mind, and we make our life easier and better, and we make the life of those around us easier and better, because the interactions that we have are more honest and more open and more compassionate, and that then brings more happiness as it filters out. So I hope that's helped, and I hope you found that interesting. If you've got any questions, please get in touch via my website, which is simplybe.org.uk, or you can text me on 07974 618 499. Or if this has sparked your interest and you'd like to work with me and work on coaching to change your mindset, to help you identify these thoughts, to become more mindful, then also please get in touch on those numbers and through the website. Thank you very much for joining me, and I'll see you next week. Bye.